Hello, today we celebrate Victory Day, 9th of May, and I think it's time to tell something about my grandparents and their war stories. This is me, my mother, and my grandmother, Lyubov Tatarinova, and this is she again, Lyubov, translated as love. She was a teenager when the war began, and she remained in Kharkiv during occupation in 1941-1943, and she told me that they were starving because they didn't have food, and they had several ways to get food. One of them was to dig up unharvested crop even in winter, and the second way was to work for Nazis. She told me she cleaned streets for food, and also she told me that she saw hanged people in the streets in the center of Kharkiv. They were partisans, and Nazis didn't remove them from the streets to intimidate the other people. But she survived, and she celebrated this day every year. And she cried when she recalled her brother who was killed in this war. And this is my grandfather, Nikolai Likhachev. He also had a very long life. He lived till 90 years. As many people during war, he was taken to army. He was a soldier. He was fighting against Nazis, and he was badly injured, and he was war prisoner. He was captured by Nazis, and he appeared to concentration camp in Dachau in Austria. He spent there 2 years, and then he was liberated and returned to Kharkiv. But after his injury, he had a concussion, and sometimes he lost his voice, and for several years he could talk just whispering. This is my grandmother, mother of my dad, Nadezhda, Nadia. It translated as hope. She lived in Tula, in Russia, and during war she was a teenager. She worked in a factory and made musical instruments during war. And then, after war, she and her family went to Kharkiv. She entered Kharkiv Karazin University and she studied genetics. But several years later, genetics as science was forbidden in Soviet Union, and all people who studied genetics were affected by this. And also my grandmother, she had to go to Siberia, and several years she worked as a school teacher there. But then she returned to Kharkiv, and she was a teacher of biology and botanics many years. And this is my grandfather, Volodymyr Litovchenko. He also was a teenager when the war began, and he lived in a small village in Kharkiv region. He couldn't enlist to army because he was too young, but he was a partisan. And soon after war, he exploded on mine and he lost his leg. But in spite of this, he came to Kharkiv and he entered Institute of Culture in Kharkiv. and I remember him very well. He didn't like when someone considered him as a war hero. He told that I wasn't a soldier, so I am not a war hero. So this is my grandparents. For me, they are real war heroes. I know the history of war from their stories, and you know, for me, this day, the 9th of May, is associated with them, first of all. Every year we came to them, to my grandparents, and celebrated this day with them. And it was the most powerful and the most important holiday for them. They celebrated and they cried. And after they all gone, I had my personal tradition to visit their graves and then to go to memorial. It's a monument. It's a monument dedicated to our victory. This day we will not visit it because it could be dangerous in Kharkiv still. But I believe soon we will have our own victory day and we will celebrate 2 victory days. The first, their victory, and the second will be our victory.